obviously, driving the ball 300 yards is valuable if you're Tiger Woods. But for me, I really had to dig deep into my personal strengths and see if they were actually valuable. Just because the Clifton Strengths Assessment says that I am unique, that doesn't really make me any more valuable to my stakeholders than anybody else out there. So I was forced to apply the VRIO model to my strengths to see if they could actually lead to sustained competitive advantage. So I started by analyzing each strength. Focus is valuable, right? It allows me to ask, where am I headed? I ask this question almost every single day. And I find that when I'm lacking a destination, my day becomes kind of frustrating. So that can be very valuable to a potential employer or stakeholder. Being an activator is a curse and a blessing, simply because I am impatient for action. So my number one question here is, when can we start? So sometimes I've seen this lead to problems because I overlook a step or I just don't ask enough questions. But it is good because I realize that action is the only thing that can make things happen. And so in my view, that's just the best way of learning things. I'm strategic. I was kind of impressed by this. But according to Gallup, this strength cannot be taught. It's something that you're kind of born with, I guess. You just know how to cut through the clutter and kind of make a path out of complexity that's in front of you. Learner, that was an obvious strength for me. Even as a kid, I just always sought new ways of doing things, and I always wanted to teach myself things and taught myself how to cut hair, how to draw, how to paint, how to make music. Learned a bunch of sports and other things. This is definitely valuable if I'm required to learn something like in a short amount of time, before moving on to more projects. And then finally, analytical. Another really valuable strength that allows me to find patterns within data. However, it can be kind of bad as well, because I can be kind of harsh on my peers sometimes if they don't bring me these sound solutions or theories backed by data. Then I don't know, it's hard for me to kind of appreciate their input, and that's kind of bad. But anyway, before I moved on from value to rarity, I wanted to dig a little deeper on the notion of value, because like I mentioned before, sure, Tiger Woods can drive a ball 300 plus yards, but is that really valuable in my shoes, where I'm an accountant, future CPA? And the answer, of course, is no. So, obviously those strengths were valuable, but are they really valuable to my profession or my goal? I want to be a really good CPA. I want to succeed in that industry. Hopefully move on to be a CFO or just start my own business. Wherever that path may lead me, but for now it's to be a CPA in public accounting. And so going on from that value, about digging a little deeper, right, that led me to asking, what do my future potential stakeholders seek? What are they looking for in me? So I turned to the web, of course, did some research, and I found a really interesting article conducted by actually my future employer, PwC, PricewaterhouseCoopers, about what CEOs are seeking and what they're seeing in their own industries and businesses. And so this survey is just a thorough report. They interview over 1,200 CEOs across 80 countries, so this is a global survey, and found some really interesting conclusions, some similarities about what these CEOs are looking for around the globe. And so the number one threat that they were facing is losing a technological edge. So this includes cyber threats, and then the speed of technological change, fearing that they'll fall behind that. And the third one was surprisingly the availability of key skills. And that's just what I was looking for. So even though, with all this automation happening, they still found that 63% of CEOs are still hiring, but they're just having a hard time finding a qualified worker. And for me, this was kind of odd because I feel like universities and colleges, they have really great programs all around the world, but maybe what we're teaching or what we're focusing on is not what these CEOs are actually looking for and what they've determined that they need to survive in the future. So anyway, this report identified what these CEOs are actually looking for in their candidates. They've identified 3 main ones, the most sought after skills, and that's being collaborative, creative, and having an efficient work style. So that might seem kind of generic, but after I thought through it some more, I just compared it to our project that we had on Pace Bars about the strategic problem. Right? So these CEOs have a strategic problem. They're afraid of the implications of the rapidly changing technological environment, and they've identified that they could potentially overcome that if they had a certain workforce, a certain skilled workforce. Like I said, after thinking through it a little bit, it was pretty simple. Right? They're not just going to hire IT grads that know technology. Right? They're looking for the best way to deal with these unpredictable changes in technology and in the global environment. And it really is unpredictable because nobody can predict the future of industries. Right? But the best way to fight against this is to have a workforce with those characteristics that they identified. Right? They want a workforce that can quickly collaborate, right, and come up with creative solutions when they're blindsided by new regulations, by new technology, by new entrants. And so that right there was it for me. That was a takeaway from this whole diamond analysis. I found out what was going to allow me to have a sustained competitive advantage. So my goal is to be creative, collaborative, and efficient. And on top of that, tech savvy, or at least create some strategic alliances with people who are tech savvy. And so if I combine those things with my current strengths that I possess, right, if I am disciplined enough, organized enough, then I meet all of the VRIO criteria, and I can have a sustained competitive advantage. And if I continue to combine those in my different aspects of life, like being a father, being a husband, right, then I'm just bound to succeed in any environment that I place myself in. Because I can come up with creative solutions and work together to face any problems. So now my only task is just to decide, what values I need to develop, what daily activities I need to perform that will lead me to become that individual, so that I can exploit any opportunities that arise and neutralize any threats that arise and be the greatest me I can be.